Val. Val, welcome back. In another of our insights from experts, we had one insight at the beginning, at the start, and we've asked Val to come back and talk to us about the anatomy of change model, TM. She's trademarked that. It's a standard approach to making your strategy stick. Okay, so Val, just because we're going to chop this up into separate presentations, I'm just going to quickly reintroduce you to everyone. There's some people that have just joined us. And so Val is founder and CEO at Content Rules, and she enjoys helping companies solve complex content problems. She's a well-known expert in content strategy, structured authoring, global content, content development, and terminology management. Val believes content should be easy to read, cost-effective to create and translate, and efficient to manage. In her fourth book, The Personalization Paradox, Why Companies Fail and How to Succeed at Creating Personalized Experiences at Scale, you'll find that, available with all good bookshops, as we say. So, Val,
hello.
Take it away.
Okay, great. Let's see. I am looking for my presentation. Hang on. All right. Thank you very much, and hi, everyone. And I realize I have a lot of information and not a whole lot of time. So I'm going to go through this rather quickly, but I'm always happy to follow up if I've gone too quickly. And I am going to be talking today about how to make your content strategy stick with a change model that I have developed. And I want to start by, if you were here for the panel, you've already heard me say this, but this is sort of the overarching organization factor of what we need to remember. That technology is easy, people are hard. And someone once asked me recently, what's my background to be talking about change management? My background is in marriage, family, and child counseling. And that's what I studied for my master's degree. And believe me, it comes in very, very handy when it comes to change management. What's a change management model? It's a plan. It's a plan for implementing your change. And I know people say, people, process, etc., but I say technology, practical planning, and emotional support. And the reason for this is that we need to prepare for the inevitable resistance that we're going to get when we try to tell people they have to do their jobs a different way. So the technology part, that's a matter of getting it installed and all of this. And I say it's easy. We know that it has its complications, but I'm telling you that it's the people part. And you probably are all nodding your heads along with me. So before creating this model, we studied a lot of models. There are a lot of models out there for change management. And here's just a dozen of the ones that we looked at. Some of these models really talk about the nuts and bolts of planning, like for a rollout, planning how people are going to do something different. And some of these models talk about dealing with the emotional, cultural, social, psychological impact of making a change. And you really need to pay attention to both of them. So after studying all of these models, we decided we kind of cherry picked what we really felt was most salient of each. And we came up with a model that has 5 stages. I am going to go through each stage, and I'm basically going to be going through each stage in the same way. I'm going to be talking about the goals of the stage, why it is important, what you should do, and what we can expect, or if you do it right, what you should be able to expect. I know it was just said that I came out with my 4th book, This part, the change management part, is planned to be the 5th book. I have not started writing it yet, so stay tuned. All right, so let's talk about strategy and planning, stage 1. The goals. Why do this? Well, you really want to get in front of the emotional reactions to change. You want to identify your champion or champions, and you really want to plan for the smoothest transition. This is a part of change management that if you don't do early enough, you're going to be scrambling at the end, and you may or may not succeed with your plan. So I recommend that you start thinking about the strategy and putting the plan, at least conceptually, into your mind. Start talking about it, because otherwise you'll be at the end of the project and you'll first be needing to plan for your change management. So again, we want to get in front of any emotional reactions. You do want to identify, your champions. You're going in this phase, what you really need to do and why it's important is that you need to connect your strategy with the business objectives. So someone in management has objectives and you're making these changes for a reason. And of course, in the content world, the assumption is this is a content strategy and you're making changes in either your content infrastructure or the way you're doing content. In the strategy and planning stage, you're really providing that roadmap. You're saying, here's what we're doing, and you're saying, here's how it's going to work. And it's important to get that buy-in from your team members. It's important, again, I'm going to say it over of emotional reactions, the resistance, the grandstanding, all the things. Some of the things that we think you should do and that we do when we work with customers during this phase, you need to know what you're dealing with. You need to know who you're dealing with. You need to know what tools you're dealing with. You need to know what processes and workflows you're dealing with. You need to know who your stakeholders are. You need to know the pain points. You need to understand and define the business objectives. You need to define what success looks like. So you need to state up front, these are the business objectives that we're trying to achieve by making this change. And here's how we're going to know if we were successful. We often talk about this so far at the beginning of a content strategy project, like the first thing we talk about, but you need to revisit it with the rest of your team because you may know and your management may know, but that doesn't mean that all of the people who are affected understand and have been told, what are the objectives? Why are we doing this? How do we know if we're successful? If you do it right, what I have seen is that you gain an understanding of who you're working with and what the capacity is. You figure out who on that larger team has what skills because you're going to need them. And you can figure out who you can lean on for that leadership and that advocacy. So when you have a change management plan, the first thing you need to do is make the plan. You cannot just do change management by just deciding one day, oh yeah, we're going to tell everybody we're changing. It's probably not going to work. So have a plan, make the plan. And again, I'm going through this really fast, but happy to follow up. Stage 2, communicate with people and train them. Communicate the goals, communicate the benefits. Again, start to bring other people in to help you promote the change, to help you manage the change. What we're trying to do is build the skills so that people have confidence in this new way of doing things. I can't tell you how often we forget. We forget that nobody knows how to write this way. Nobody knows how to write for structure. Nobody knows how to write for reuse. Nobody knows that, before you start typing, you should look and see if somebody else has written what you're about to write. Nobody knows this. We never taught them. So make sure that we're communicating, that we're training people so that we don't just sort of send them out there and expect them to know what they're doing because we've been studying this for a year and we know what we're doing. You need to develop confidence. You need to build comfort, and you need to collect feedback for what you could be doing better. You must always, it's hard when someone says you must. I recommend you always be willing to change. You always be willing to hear the feedback. I'm going to give you what I believe to be the most important tip that I have discovered in all of this. And that starts with my master's education. Resistance comes from fear. That's where it comes from. It comes from fear. What is the fear? Okay? The fear. What are people afraid of? Keep this in mind as we keep going through. Resistance comes from fear. So we need to develop confidence. We need to build comfort. We need to acknowledge the fear. We need to share what we're doing. We need to take surveys and share results. Again, we need to be willing to improve based on the people who we're responsible for bringing along in this change. So we're going to provide training. We're going to provide workshops. We're going to teach people how to use their tools. We're going to teach people how to write differently. We're not just going to throw them out to the lions. Hopefully, if we do this right, we help them develop capabilities. We start to eliminate the fear. We show them that, yes, they can be successful in this new way. Yes, they have the capacity to learn how to do this new thing. Yes, they have the capacity to develop new skill sets. So that it's not this big, scary thing that we're putting on everybody. Hey, we're going to, now you need to know DITA. You need to understand all this other stuff. It's not Microsoft Word anymore. We're not in Kansas. We need to bring people along and understand that it is fear. And we don't talk about this in business, and we should talk about this in business. It's fear. That's why people resist. And they have every right to be afraid. They've been doing this job for, 10 years, 15 years. And oh my gosh, you want them to do it differently, and they don't know how. So they're going to resist. Of course, there are people who are gung-ho and they always want to learn something new, and we love them for it. But when you think about, what we would call the old timers, I'm an old timer, so I can say that. There are people who've been doing their jobs this way for a long time, and they've been judged. They've had their KPIs based on their job, raises, bonuses, all of this. And now you're telling them they need to do it a new way. Communicate, train, remember what you're up against. Remember what they're up against. So you will at this point have resistance, if not from the very beginning. You're going to need to address it. You can't ignore it. You're going to need to address it. You need to acknowledge that there is resistance. And you don't have to say to someone, hey, you know what? I know you're scared of this, because nobody's going to admit they're scared of change. Well, maybe someone would, but most people won't. You need to understand, if you're trying to bring people along, To overcome that resistance, we need to embrace new ways of working. We may need to change our plan based on feedback. So we need to not be resistant to feedback and changing what we're doing to help the rest of the team. Listen, you have to listen. You have to be honest. You have to be upfront and say, you know what? We haven't figured that out yet. That's a really good point. Would you like to help us figure that out? Oh, you know what? This aspect right here, this is going to be painful. Earlier we were talking about reviewers, and bringing reviewers along. And when you change how someone reviews your content, we always have to remember that reviewing content is not somebody's job, unless you're an editor. When we ask an SME to look at content, we're taking them away from their job. We need to make it as easy as possible. Sometimes this is an area of pain and obstacles. You need to ask for feedback. And most of all, don't take resistance personally. We can't help it. At this point, we've probably been working on this new ecosystem for, a year. And all of a sudden now people are in our face not wanting to change, and it gets frustrating for us. So don't take it personally, and remember, people resist because they're afraid. It really is the reason they resist. What if I can't do it? What if we fail? What if I get blamed? What if my content isn't as good as it used to be? What if someone points the finger at me because I didn't understand how to write something? I did it wrong. Fear. And then when you have fear and start to resist, what comes next is, well, wait a second. Why aren't they listening to me? I can see these problems and they're just telling me to stop resisting. And you end up like in this battle like I have had when my children were teenagers. And that's just not productive for anyone. You need to listen. You need to address. You need to be a marriage, family, and child counselor. I know that wasn't in your job description, but it's going to be a lot easier if you address people's concerns directly, honestly. Hopefully, you're ahead of the rumors, the rumor mill. You're transparent. You're listening to the hard things. You might have made a mistake in your plan. It's very possible. Unless you've done this before 20 times, maybe you made a mistake. You need to be able to change and improve the strategy and be open to the ideas. It's all about addressing the fear. Stage 4, as my minutes tick by, monitoring and feedback. You want to continue. It's not done right when, you've overcome the resistance part. You want to continue to build the trust. You want to continue to improve the change plan, the strategy itself. You want to be continuously monitoring and getting feedback so that you can improve, and then everybody else is going to improve as well. Our job is to actually remove obstacles. I tell my employees, on the whole, my job is for them to be successful, to give them what they need to be successful. Your job in a change management situation is to give your people what they need so that your entire change management event, your move, your ecosystem, so that's successful. We're all in this for the same reason. Gather feedback, surveys, roundtables, brown bag lunches, one-to-one meetings, whatever it is, you want to continuously monitor and listen to the feedback. You're going to build trust. You're going to give people a place where they can voice their concerns. You're going to get to the problems while they're still small. So that's part of this. is that if you have to course correct, you want to do it before it becomes a big deal. Motivating forward momentum. People are heard. They see that you're acting on their feedback. This is the way you get people to really change. Finally, integration and governance. Woohoo, woohoo. The change has happened. Everybody's done it. Look at all that we did. Look, we got this far. These people helped. Give people, acknowledge their achievements. Right? You can gain consensus. Look what we did. Increase the awareness. Toot your own horn, as they say. Get that change into the culture. Create it so it's lasting. We have new ways to work. We're going to constantly be checking on this. Really important, really important. Document your successes, document your failures, analyze what you've done, highlight what you've done and the people who have helped you, your champions, whoever that is. Make sure people are acknowledged. I have found that a Starbucks card does a lot of good. It's amazing. Hopefully, if you've done everything well, then the benefits that you were trying to achieve in your design are achieved. You've got efficiencies, you show management cost reductions, you can provide personalized experiences. I know someone who wrote a book about that. You have conversions from your marketing site, whatever it is. You set out your business objectives. Now you have to show they're either met or they will be met. And if that's not the case, then you should have recognized this a few stages ago and made some changes then. Look at me on time. Look at me on time, huh? All right. Change management is a model. It's a plan for change. You want to make sure you've got the business goals in mind. Remember, resistance comes from fear, and no one talks about it. And that's where it comes from. We've got 5 stages for you, from planning through communicating, through addressing that resistance head on, monitoring, integration, governance. There you have it. I caught you up on time now. You're back on time. I'm here for you.
So yeah, I didn't. Yeah.
There we go.
I was just like, trying to calculate. Okay, so how are we gonna get this back? But hey, and of all the presentations, I was the one that overran with the demo. We were on track. I was like, we were doing so well. Thank you very much. That's really interesting, so well. Your presentation, Val. I'm sorry I dropped your handout during, and I was just setting it up to drop it off at the end, and I hope that didn't throw you off too much.
No, not at all. Not at all. Down low away and ping me if you have questions. And thank you much. And I will let you move on to your next fantastic presenter. Yep. She's great.
Okay. Thank you very much, Val.
Bye now. Okay. Bye. Hi, Dawn. Bye, Dawn.